Hi, I'm Tyler Tamburino, and I decided to help make a film for my grandpa's 90th birthday. I present to you the story of Edmund H. Dunn. Hope you enjoy.
(1926). 90 years old. Barbara Nicaragua, real skinny gal, and she always wore a lot of makeup, and girls then didn't wear a lot of makeup. And she always used to say, "Oh, I'm going to be a movie star," and we used to laugh at her. Didn't think any more about it. I went into the service, hadn't seen her. I came home from leave on one day, and they had a beauty contest in Jamaica, and she won the beauty contest. So I didn't hear any more from her for while I was in the service. And then she suddenly appears in movies with Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and she changed the name of Barbara Nichols. So she was in every movie with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. She was in an automobile accident, serious accident, and the injuries of that was such that she died a few years later. She was very young when she died, but she knew what she wanted to do and she did it. We laughed at her, but we shouldn't have. Elementary school. PS 91. We lived one block away. I used to walk to school, walk home every day. I didn't dislike it. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we had a teacher, Mr. Frank. He was a science teacher, and he knew I was interested in flying. And at that time, there were a lot of movies about the Navy and flying and everything. So I told him I wanted to do that. And he said, "I'll tell you what, let's sit down and write a letter to the Secretary of the Navy and get some information." He helped me write the letter, and I got a whole bunch of pamphlets back and everything else. That was kind of unique, I thought. I played baseball, and most of the time I was on the track team, and even on my day off I was training. So I was pretty much into that. We were living in a place called Glendale, and when you lived in New York, you could go to high school anywhere you wanted. It didn't matter where you lived. And there was a high school that offered an aviation course. So I made up my mind that's where I wanted to go. However, it wasn't close to where we lived. So I had to take a trolley to the end of the line, then I took a train to the end of the line, and then I finally walked about, I don't know, maybe a half mile to get to the school. I went to school, I had to be there at 2 o'clock. We didn't get out until 6 at night. By the time I got home, took the train, the trolley, and everything else, it was pretty late when I got home. Yeah, in fact, a friend of mine, Milton Libby was his name, and we lived what is now Kennedy Airport. We lived right on the edge of what it now is, and it was just sand dunes, and it was called Idlewild at that time. So we decided to build a glider, and we were going to tow it on the sand dunes behind a car. And we got pretty well along with it, and his father worked the night shift. We built it at his house, and his father came home one night, and he thought this was a bad idea, and he cut the whole thing up. So that was the end of our first airplane. Well, Glenn Miller was it. I mean, and the interesting thing, in fact, if you look on the Today Show, on the window they show there's a movie marquee across the street, and that used to be the New York Paramount. And we used to go there for 50 cents. You see the movie,
Goodness.
and then you'd see the band. When I went into the Air Force, there was a guy in a bunk next to me. He got into his bunk and he put some pictures up of all these showgirls. And everybody's asking, what's this all about? And he said, my father is the manager for Frank Sinatra. And he said, I'm only going to be in here a couple of weeks and my father's going to get me out of this. But he was telling me that when Frank Sinatra first appeared at the New York Paramount, all the teenagers came in, teeny boppers they called them, and they were crying and screaming. And he said, my father did that. He said he went out and got these high school girls, all gave them free tickets to go to the show and get up and scream and yell. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, somebody came in and said to him, come on, pack your bags, you're leaving. And he left. His father knew a lot of people and somehow got him out of the service. You know, I missed all those years because I went in the service when I was 17. And then I got out and went right to college, and I still didn't have a car. I only had a car probably my second year in college. Another guy and I went partners on an old beat-up wreck, and I don't even remember what kind of a car it was. And then I got a Ford coupe, and I overhauled it. In fact, your mother and I were dating then, and I took the thing apart in her garage and overhauled it. My first real job was when I got out of college. We moved to New York, and a friend of mine called me, and he said, I know where you can get a job if you're interested. So he told me where to go. It was over in Brooklyn. It's American Machine and Foundry Company. And they interviewed me, and they said, okay, you're going to be working in New York, in the city, on a black project. It's a secret government project. So I started work over there. It was in a bus terminal building on 8th Avenue and 42nd Street. It was upstairs. The buses came in downstairs. There was no name on the door, no windows or anything else. Nothing to identify what it was or what was going on there. So we worked for 3 years on that project. We never knew what we were working on. After that, I left and got another job. But in the meantime, maybe 4 or 5 years later, the Navy invited me to go on a cruise on a nuclear submarine. And by that time, I had security clearance. And I went all over the sub, and they fired a missile and torpedoes and everything. Did the whole 9 yards. And I looked around, and a lot of the stuff that I saw was familiar. So when I got back, I did some research, and I found out then that the project we were working on was the first nuclear sub, the Nautilus. You know what I think it is? I trained so much when I was in high school and in college. I mean, if it was snowing out, if it was raining, I went out and I trained. There was a golf course there by the college, and I ran every day. I don't care what the weather was, and I ran that complete golf course every day. And I think the running that I did years ago that was a big contributing factor. You got to think positive.